the mind is forever fickle. And whatever it takes up now as a cherished item, later it rejects as the worst garbage. And therefore we have this vidhi bhakti where we stick to it until we can actually develop an appreciation. And yes, there may be a stage at which the process seems a little more tedious. Just as when one learns typing, and you have to constantly refer to the typing book. Nowadays it's software, and you also have to be very clear about where you put your fingers and so forth. I noticed, the beginning of anything can seem exciting, and later on, when the results don't come, the mind says, give me something else. I used to be in business of teaching people how to start their own business. I'd help people start their own businesses and get started in business and help coach them till they were successful, hopefully. And what I found was a lot of people wanted to be entrepreneurs because the prospect of being financially independent was compelling. But once they started, and they realized there was a lot of work involved, and then there was also failure was possible that you had to work through, and obstacles and so forth. I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, you don't want to do it anymore? No. And there's a way in which when we dedicate ourselves to the spiritual process, we see the prospect in the beginning and it becomes compelling, and we see the light and so forth, and then we dig in, and then there's the daily battle of the trenches that one has to go into with the mind and the senses and everything else. That is, however, a temporary period. In any practice, in business, it's like that. In learning to play an instrument, it's very true. I mean, everyone who thinks of playing an instrument, or perhaps many people, think of themselves, there I am, I'm playing the instrument, everyone's listening and then cheering afterwards and so forth. But when you actually sit down and try to figure out where to put your fingers on the keys, and it becomes an arduous practice, then, the mind might say, well, maybe I'll try another instrument. And I know, when I was growing up, there were kids that tried about 6 instruments. So what happened to your clarinet? Nah, I'll play the trombone. They move to one thing to the next. So yeah, we have to be a little wary of the interim period. And
no, I was thinking more of the taste. Like when you start fresh, you get this real high with the minimal sadhana that you're putting in. You get this real shot of adrenaline, and then you put in all the sadhana and you're pumping. Sometimes you're like,
free
where
sample.
was that high? Free sample.
It's a free sample. I told this many times, but Chicago, when I did Sankirtan downtown, I remember the candy bar companies used to come out during the summer, and they would give away candy bars, but they were only little like this. But it had the logo and everything else to introduce the candy bar, and people would line up, they give out all the candy bars, and they come back, give me another one. It's like, nope. You got to go buy it now. Narada Muni, when he started, he sat down, he got an overwhelming experience. Imagine his bliss when every one of his senses was independently liberated and engaged in the service of Krishna. He was floating in an ocean of bliss, and then he was pulled back into the bodily existence. And then he tried to mechanically get it back. And then Krishna spoke to him in an unembodied voice and said, it's not mechanical. He said, you're a ku-yogi. You're trying the wrong way. You have to do this throughout your lifetime, qualified. This verse, go back to this verse. What's the qualification? Kalpate. How do you become qualified? Remain steady through happiness and distress throughout this lifetime. And it is a lifetime endeavor. About taste for the holy name, Charu, one of my godbrothers, he was in Australia. Really brilliant devotee. Super brilliant. He's in Utah. He has that project in Utah. His wife designed that temple and they built it by hand. You ever seen that? If you ever hear Charu speak, He should have been a senator or a president or something. He's the slickest speaker in the world, and he looks like a senator too. He also can make money anywhere. Bajrang Reinmarsh once said, if you send Chiru and Vaibhavi, that's his wife, to the dark side of the moon, they'll figure out how to make a profit. Anyway, Chiru, when he was a young devotee, I think he joined around 1969 in Australia. Prabhupada came there, and he had been chanting for a little while. Everybody had been chanting for a little while. And he asked Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, when do you actually get a taste? When can you actually get a, really taste for the holy name? And Prabhupada thought about it about 2 minutes, and he said, 40 years. So don't even ask for another 40 years. No, it's all right to ask. But and there are a lot of answers too. There are a lot of answers, and it isn't important to check back in again. It's like, what was that again? But the taste is there. It's covered over by the mind's machinations and the various coverings of the senses. They're very subtle, and they actually rob us of that connection we have with Krishna, which is very sweet. And especially you can get from association with advanced devotees, sometimes more expediently than anything. As if you get around devotees that have taste, it's inordinate. Actually, it sort of rubs off on you. You go away thinking like, how'd that happen? Is this causeless mercy? I sat with somebody who actually had a taste for chanting. Like I have a godbrother, when he chants, I always feel like he's drinking a beverage, and I want to taste some too. I hear him chant. He sits in my house sometimes, and I sit with him sometimes in Mayapur when he's chanting, and the mantra's going on, and I'm thinking, it's like he's drinking something the way he chants, some beverage or something. It's like, I'd like to have a beverage like that too. So you can develop an interest in getting a taste. And you can always find a taste somewhere in Krishna consciousness. You may not have it in chanting. It takes some time because it's a you against the mind in the chanting of the japa. But there are other ways in which devotees develop tastes. Of washing pots. I mean, that's a way to get an instant taste. You go in and you scrub pots for Krishna. Then all of a sudden, it's like first of all, you feel spiritually noble. Unless you get puffed up and think, look, I'm so humble, I'm washing pots. But if you actually go in and do some menial service, it's like no one knows I'm in here, all of a sudden you'll start feeling like, this is nice. I want to stay in here. I don't want to go back out to my job at Cisco. I want to stay in here and wash pots. And there, if you go volunteer for a festival and you just go back, I'll do whatever you say. Here's a taste. You go in and you say, just tell me what the thing. There's a taste in that. You start developing this taste. I mean, very advanced devotees, they'll come visit and they'll say, tell me what you want me to do. They don't come in and it's like, look, I'm going to tell you how it is and how... They come in and they say, tell me how I can serve. Order me. They'll say like that. Order me. What do you want me to talk about? If you want me to do anything, do that. Because there's a taste in that. Jeev Krishna Das E Bishwas Kole Tora Dukhanai. Just say this thing, I'm a servant of Krishna. There's a taste in that. And there's also a taste in not having a taste. Ashlishyava padaratam binashtumam adarshana marmahatam kurotava. There's a way in which Lord Chaitanya, I can't get anything. When Krishna's gone, he's not even paying attention to me. It's like, but I'm not giving up. And as soon as you say that, then all of a sudden you feel this taste. It's like, I'm the person who's never going to see Krishna, but I'm never giving up. I'm the person who doesn't have any taste for chanting japa, but I'm not going to stop chanting no matter what. And then you'll feel, bolstered in that determination. There's taste in that. There's taste in everything in Krishna consciousness. It's sweet on every side. And if you just lock yourself to it and go on, the rewards, I was listening to Prabhupada today and he was saying the rewards are beyond what you can expect. All the time. And in the material world, they're always below what you expect. You get it, what it was, and then you go like, that's it? I mean, Christmas time is a great example. I used to, when I was a kid, I got to have that toy. I remember I wanted this little it had these ducks going around, and you shoot the little gun, shot these pellets, and you knock the ducks down and stuff like that. And I was dreaming about it, because I think I saw it on television. I had to have it. And I saw it in the department store downtown San Francisco, and I was like praying, and oh, if I could just get that thing. And I remember it lasted about 10 minutes. After I opened it up, it's like, aren't you going to play with that thing? Yeah, that thing. And practically everything in this world is like that, except for the process of devotional service. You can read about it in the third canto, that chapter called Devotional Service by Lord Kapila Dev, the process of devotional service. And it's like, here, I just happen to have a copy. We just have a few minutes left. Let me read you a few verses from this. You'll be transformed. Devahuti's lamentation, the glories of devotional service. Just a few verses for a taste. This is 25:1. Sri Shaunaka said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Shaunaka continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Therefore, please precisely describe the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potencies. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the most powerful sage Maitreya was a friend of Vyasadeva. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows. Maitreya said, when Kardama left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of the Bindu Sarovara to please his mother Devahuti. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devahuti remembered the words of Brahma had spoken to her, and she began to question him as follows. Devahuti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material desires, for because of this sense disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental eye, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel illusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. Devahuti continued, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between matter and spirit. Maitreya said, after hearing his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself questions, and thus his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in all ways. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity acted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called happiness and distress. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never although very minute in size. Last verse, but this one's going to send you away with something you'll never forget. Listen to this. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation and devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective, becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. I rest my case. So we've had a foray into one of the tiny little aspects of devotional service, and we found that it's, after all, there's an ocean. Yes.